Let me know when we're live. Okay. Awesome. It's amazing. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another IG Live session where we talk about all things EB1, EB2 and NIW, all one visa, and hopefully answer all your questions, the questions that you guys may have. All right, let me join on my phone as well. It's just weird. I just like to join on my phone because I want to be able to see what's happening. So when people start saying, I can't hear you, I can see it, by the way. Okay. So, because I can't see the comments on my main screen, I always have to have, I don't know, I just always have to see what people are saying so I can catch your questions. But hi everyone. Hi Bumble 15, an amazing community that you have. I always go on your page just to see what you guys have. I believe it's called just got to Yankee, or just came from Yankee, or just got to Yankee. But is it? I like your page. I always go on there to see what you guys are sharing. Really like that. Okay, all right. So welcome, guys. I'll get right to it. Okay. So today we're just really going to talk about what to do next, right? Let's say your priority date is current. You have been waiting in line, to be able to move forward. Your green card application is finally current. What can you do, right? But for those who are just joining this channel for the first time, my name is Dr. Ozi. I'm the founder of my EB2 NIW LLC, where we help individuals, we assist individuals with editorial services for their EB1 applications, EB2 NIW applications, and most recently, the O1 petition. So if that's something that you're interested in getting your green card in the US, this is the right page for you, right? Especially if it's merit based, right? This is the right page for you. Before we go on, I also want to, let you guys know that we have something for everyone, right? Sometimes people consult with us and say, hey, I want to do it myself. I can't afford to have someone else write this for me. I really just want to put the application together myself. We have templates, right? So if you're looking for EB1A templates, if you're looking for EB2 NIW templates for recommendation letters, how do I draft these letters? We have those as well. All right. So if that's something you're interested in, if you go on our website, www.myeb2niw.com, you'll find all these resources that are there for you. We also like to share the stories of individuals who have been approved, right? Because what's better than hearing from someone who's been approved? Just letting them tell you their stories, their backgrounds. Hopefully you can find someone on there who has a similar profile to yours, and they use that as a template for your success. Now, we don't necessarily share people's petitions, but we do tell you in a nutshell, like, okay, this is what they proposed, these are the degrees they had, the certifications, and things like that, just to give you an overview of everything that they did, right? Okay. Okay, so that's all that I have to share for now. Our page has a lot of information, so if you go on our page, we try to keep up with, just giving you guys a lot of content. One thing that I would ask that if you find something that you really like on our page, that you share that information, because you never know, right? The best gift that you can give an international student or an immigrant just like you is good information, not just information, but good information. That will save them a lot of stress, especially those in the US. All right. Okay. Hi, Adam, CSP. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you, everyone. Okay. So let's go right to it. So, today we're talking about specifically for individuals who have been waiting. So they have applied for a green card through the EB2 and NIW category. They've put in the first step, which is the application for alien worker through the form I-140. So once you put in that application to USCIS, they give you a priority date. What date? What does that mean? They tell you your place in line. Usually that date is the day that they receive your application, right? The day that USCIS receives your application is your priority date. So why is this important? This is important because they will then issue you a green card based on when you applied, right? They give you priority based on when you applied. So the individuals who have been approved right now, it's taken a while now. When I got my green card, and I got my green card through a similar, this pathway actually, At the time I applied for my green card, you could do everything at once. You could put in the first application for I-140. As soon as it gets approved, you could put in the next application, to adjust your status. So you're in the US on a different status, like F1. I was on F1, right? So you're in the US on a different immigration status. You can immediately put in an application and complete the process. But over time, especially during the pandemic, we saw like a pause in that process where people were getting approved, but they couldn't finish the process because USCIS had over approved people, right? So they have a limited amount of green cards available every year. So if they've approved more people than they have green cards for, guess what? There's going to be a queue for the green card. So that's what the priority date helps with is, okay, we've approved all of you for the first step. We think you're qualified. Now you're going to wait in line till, you get the go ahead, right, to move on to the next step. So that's what the Visa Bulletin does. So every month, the U.S. Department of State releases a monthly bulletin, right? A monthly information, monthly calendar. And they pretty much are saying, if you look at this calendar, you're going to see the people or the range of dates that we're working with, right? There are two main important things on that calendar, right? There's the final action date, and then there's the date of filing. These two dates are very important. So for the longest time, it's been the final action date. The final action date is pretty much the date that USCIS can give you a green card. So if you go on there and you see a final action date with, let's just say, today is September 12th. You see September 12th, 2023. It means that if your priority date, which is the date that you submitted your application, the date USCIS received your application, if that date is before the date you find on that calendar, on that bulletin, then you can go ahead and apply for the next step, which is adjustment of status, right? Now, they told us every month on the bulletin, they'll tell you which calendar to focus on or which chat to focus on. And so for the month of September, they said, focus on the final action month, focus on the final action dates. So we focus on that. Now, sometimes USCIS may say, I think based on our projections, based on the amount of applications we've received, we have more visas available. We project that we'll have more visas available. So we want you to use the filing date instead, right? So that means that they're giving you a heads up to say, hey, if your date is before the date on the filing date chat, go ahead and prepare your application so that as soon as October comes, you can turn it in. So what happened this month was that on the Department of State website, when we looked at the Visa Bulletin, we saw that the filing date had moved forward. And if you look at USCIS website, they're saying for employment-based applications, use the filing date for October 2024. So that means that if your priority date is before the 1st of August 2023, that it's time to turn in your application, right? So that's just what all this ruckus is about. People are just trying to figure out, okay, is it time for me to apply for my adjustment of status or not, right? Okay. Now, does this chat affect individuals who are outside the US? There are people who can apply from outside the US for their green cards, right? This chat also affects the people who are outside, who are going to complete the process through consular processing, right? So the Department of State Visa Bulletin is not just for individuals who are adjusting status, it's also for individuals. It affects people who are outside the US and are planning to go through the consular processing step, all right? Now, they always give us heads up of what's going to happen next month. Guys, don't turn in your application now. Wait till October, okay? Because we've had individuals who they've been preparing for this all their life. They just want to do it now. And then they turn it in and then you get it right back. USCIS will send it right back to you, all right? So wait until at least the 1st of October to send in your application. I had a client once who, people are really good at planning. So he planned to send his application. So if the application was due, let's say October 1st, he said, Dr. Ozzy, I'm going to turn it in on September 29th or September 25th, so that with all the mailing and everything, it will get to their desk October 1st, right? And I said, yeah, okay, we can try that. So what eventually ended up happening was that he turned his application in and it got sent back to him because we're like, oh, your priority date is not current yet. So sometimes, especially when there's a jump in the Visa Bulletin and people sending the applications right away, my understanding is that whoever receives your application is not the main USCIS officer that's going to review this stuff. I think there are people who will process the applications first. And so sometimes they see that and it's like, your priority date is not current yet. They might send it back to you. If that's you in August 2024, just go ahead and print out the Visa Bulletin, circle the part that says August 2023, send it right back, okay? That's what's going to happen. Okay. So now let's talk about individuals who have been waiting forever and want to proceed with the next steps. What do you have to do? What's expected next? All right. So the very first thing that you have to do, since you have this time, you have the heads up, right? The thing that takes the longest is the medical form. So if you haven't already done your medicals, this is a great time to schedule them, right? So why do we need medicals for immigration purposes? Why do we need it? So there's a specific form for those who are in the US and even for those who are outside the US, right? For those who are in the US, let's talk about individuals who are in the US first. You guys are our priority because we are all here, right? So we want to talk about you first. So those who are already in the US, right? What happens with the medicals? So it's a specific form called Form I-693. That form is for vaccination records. That form is for your medical history, right? So what happens is you go on the USCIS website, you download the form. Now, on that form, there is the first part of the form that you have to complete, right? So you go ahead and complete the part that has to do with your name, the names of the applicants, and then at this point, the good thing is that at the point where you're adjusting status, this is the time that you add all your dependents. So remember, when you were applying for putting in your I-140, it was all about you. Well, this time, when you're adjusting status, this is time to add your husband, this is time to add your children on your application, people who depend on you, okay? And all of you will do the steps together. So like I said, you go on the USCIS website, you download the form I-693. It's important that you go on the website to download this, because if you have just downloaded the form in the past and saved it on your computer, it's very possible that USCIS has updated that form, right? They may see a mistake one day and say, you know what, take down the old version, we'll update it and put a new one back there. Now, if you use the old version of any form, they will send the thing right back to you and say, this is not the most updated version of our forms, right? So it's important that you always go to their website and make sure that it's the updated version. So let's say it's a family of 5 people, right? Your husband, yourself, and 3 children. You download 5 versions of that form I-693 because every single one of you will need a medical check, right? If it's just you, go ahead and download 1 copy of it. You fill out the first part of the form that has to do with personal information about you, and then take the rest of the form to your doctor. Now, what doctor does this? It's not any doctor. So don't just use your favorite doctor. Go on the website. Just what I usually do, I just Google USCIS doctor. It'll take you to a website where you can put in your zip code, right? So guys, you put in your zip code. It'll tell you all the doctors that are around you, medical professionals. They call them civil surgeons. It'll tell you all the approved civil surgeons around you that can do that test, right? That can do the series of tests. And so you have the liberty to choose one that's really close to you, choose one that's really close to your job, and schedule an appointment. Call ahead of time. Ask them, how much does this test cost? The reason is that the government does not regulate this, right? Each establishment will have its own pricing for this. So you want to make sure that you do your own due diligence, make sure you call a couple of offices and figure out which one is within your price range, right? I mean, the difference is not going to be astronomical, but it's important to do that. Another reason it's important to call ahead is because most of these things are appointment based. So it's not like you can walk in clinic where you can just walk in and, you have to do like blood tests, you have to do a series of things. So it's important that you schedule a consultation for this type of test, right? And then what are they looking for with the medical test? What are they what are they really asking for? All right. So USCIS, the United States, as I would say, are really interested in, number one, keeping out communicable diseases from the US, right? Very important, because we don't want people, I said we. Ooh, I like that. They need to, come and give me something for this. Anyway, so the US does not want individuals who will come in and begin to spread diseases of public health concern, right? Things like syphilis, gonorrhea, what else? Syphilis, gonorrhea, TB, right? These things spread like wildfire. And so you want to make sure that they're screening everyone who's coming in for those things, right? So those are things they care about. They don't care about HIV or cancer, things like that. No, you cannot discriminate against people for those types of things. But TB, definitely, you want to make sure that they're screening, right? So that's one. Number two, they also want to do some mental checks on you, right? What kind of tests are required for mental checks? What do they do? Usually it's a question about how your day is going. Just what do you do? How is your day going? you know. So it's, if someone is okay mentally, you can tell. They tell you, okay, yeah, I work in the hospital here, I do this kind of research, I'm having a good day, blah blah blah. But if someone is not really okay but mentally balanced, they could really go off the rail with the kind of answers that they give. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is that I want you guys to know that everything about that visit is an evaluation, right? The doctor's not really your friend. He's there to give an honest opinion about you, or give you a clean bill of health, right? So you want to make sure that even from the answers you're giving about this, I don't care if you're having a really bad day, right? Make sure that you realize that everything is an evaluation. You really want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward. All right. So we talked about vaccination, we talked about mental health checks. What else are they looking for? Um, they're also looking for, so we talked about vaccination and mental health checks. Okay, if anything else comes up there, I will let you know. Okay. Oh yeah, they do some physical. So they might do some blood draws. They might send that to the lab to, really make sure that everything is okay. All right. Okay. So the next thing that you have to really think about there is that, what if it comes back that you have syphilis, right? For instance, is the doctor just going to report you to the government? No. When you go back, typically that visit is not the only visit that you're going to go for, right? So definitely you'll probably go back to get the results, and the doctor will talk to you about the results. So it's not just going to seal it, stamp it, and send it to the government. No, the doctor is going to tell you, this is the result of your tests that you did, right? These are the results, and then he's going to give you a copy, obviously, because it's your information, medical information. But then he's also going to sign a different copy, right? That form I-693, he's going to complete the rest of that form, seal it in front of you, and give it back to you in a sealed envelope, right? This is very, very important, because you're going to send this into USCIS with the rest of your application for adjustment of status if you're in the US. So you're not going to open that envelope. He's already told you what's in there. It's no surprise. It's going to go back to USCIS with your adjustment of status application. Okay, so I just finished talking about the medical checks that you're going to do. And if you have questions about that, we can touch on that. But really, it's all just, vaccination records. So when you're going for the appointment, take your vaccination records with you, right? A lot of individuals who are international in the US already have this, because if you went to school in the US, you're an F1 student, you probably were asked to bring that kind of record. What will happen if you fall short in any way? Let's say there's a vaccine that you didn't take, right? They'll let you do it. They'll let you take it. Oh, something I was talking about before. Let's say you found out that you had syphilis in the test, God forbid, right? But let's say you did. The doctor will give you a chance to treat it, right? It's not just going to report you to the government. You have a chance to treat whatever it is communicable that you have, and then you can come back and reschedule that visit. They're not just going to report you to the US government, okay? All right, so they've given you back your sealed envelope. You're ready to turn everything into USCIS. What other forms do you need? The most important form, right? Well, it's not most important form, but the major form for adjustment of status is form I-485. I-485, right? This form is really asking about your personal records, your personal history, your immigration history. They want to know about all the places you've lived in the last 5 years, your your employment history in the last 5 years. And then they'll ask you a whole bunch of questions about your parents, your spouse, your dependents. They will also ask you a whole bunch of questions about, they're called inadmissibility test questions, right? So they'll ask you, have you ever been part of a militia? Have you ever been part of, for most people, the answer is no to a lot of all those things, basically, right? But for some people, they may have certain places where they will say yes, right? In my experience, just working with a lot of individuals, when you start putting yes, if one of those answers turns out to be yes, you might be called in for an interview, right? Just so you can explain further. They're not just going to say, hey, denied because you put yes. No. Most of the time, they will call you in for an interview. But what we've been seeing lately is that people have been getting their green cards in the mail once they've been approved. But if you get called in for an interview, it's not a bad sign. It's just that they want to hear more from you, right? Instead of the back and forth, right? Okay, so there's another important part of the form I-485 that I need to talk to you guys about. There's a public charge set of questions, right? What's the meaning of public charge? Okay, so the US also wants to know if you're going to become a liability to their government, if you're going to start using up their resources. Can this person fend for themselves? Is this someone that has been collecting credit cards and swiping and has so much debt? They want to know, what is your household income? Do you have liabilities? How much in debt are you, right? They want to know all those things. What is your household size? How much do you guys make altogether? Do you have things that you've taken on loans and things like that? It's also important, right? Now, this set of questions are also under the inadmissibility section, but it doesn't mean that if you have used Medicaid, for instance, a few times, that you're all automatically canceled, that you cannot adjust your status. No, it just means that usually for those things they look at the full picture, right? It's not just the one-time use of something. They just want to see, okay, is this someone that can fend for themselves? And even if they determine that you can't fend for yourself at this time, you may be able to add a sponsor, right, to show that there's someone who can indeed fend for you in the US, right? So we've talked about the I-485, which is for adjustment of status. We talked about the medical check and what they're looking for. What are some of the things? Can you get an RFE? I'm just thinking about questions that you guys may have. I'm just trying to, get ahead of it, okay? Excuse me. Some of the questions that people will ask is, can I get an RFE for this step, the I-485 step, the adjustment of status step? Absolutely, yes, you can, right? You can get an RFE for the adjustment of status step. The one that I've seen the most is USCIS will say, show us evidence that you're still in the field that you are approved for, for the I-140. Because usually a lot of time has passed between when you approved and when you're finally going to adjust your status. Now, they know that you don't need to have a job for this, but they really want to, especially for those who are in the US, they may ask you, is there evidence that you're still in this field? Especially for those of you who say, this is what I'm doing right now. I'm already doing this stuff. They may want to see evidence of that, right? So that's the point where people start adding their employment verification letter to show that, yes, indeed, I said I was going to do this in the US. I'm still in the same field as what I proposed, right? That may come up. That's one of that is one of the RFEs that we've seen. Incomplete forms. Sometimes people don't complete the forms accurately. So it's very important that, again, you download the most recent version of that I-485, you fill it out completely and correctly, and that you sign it. Because if you don't sign it, it will also get sent back to you. Now, there are some supporting documents that you have to include with the 485. So the 485, everything about this process is not just about filling out forms and turning it in, right? There are also things that you really have to do, accompanying forms or accompanying piece of evidence that you have to include in order to successfully finish the process, right? So what am I talking about? The most important thing is, of course, show us evidence that your I-140 was approved, right? So usually when your I-140 is approved, you receive a notice in the mail that says, hey, you've been approved, blah, blah, blah. You put a copy of that. For everything USCIS is asking about, they don't want originals. So you don't need to put the original document. Put a copy of that approval for your I-140. The next thing is your adjusting status. They want to know. Show us evidence that you are legal right now, that you have legal immigrant status or your legal non-immigrant status in the US, right? So usually that includes your I-94 record. If you're a student, that's your I-20. For those of you who have completed school, maybe you're working on that EAD, you want to show them that current EAD that you have. For those of you on H-1B, you want to show that. Those on O-1 visa, you want to show that. You just have to show evidence that you're still in status. So that's why it's important to maintain your status. For those of you who, unfortunately, the priority date is not current yet, it's very important to maintain your non-immigrant status, because when it comes time to adjust status, they want evidence that you indeed are legal at the time that you're adjusting. It doesn't mean that, after the turning in your adjustment of status, you're good. They just want to see at the day that you submitted this application, were you in status? So very important, okay? Okay, they want to see identity documents. So they want to see birth certificate, guys, very, very important. Reach back to your parents and ask them for your birth certificate, right? It's important to get the original, because if you do get called in for an interview, they would request for the original of the birth certificate. But if you don't get called in, of course, you're going to send them a copy of that certificate. I'm talking from experience, right? Okay, so you want to send them your ID documents, your passport, the biometric page for your passport. You want to send them evidence that your I-140 was approved. You want to send them evidence of your legal non-immigrant status. You also want to send them, if you're one of those people who wants to preempt RFE, proof that you're still in this field. So it could be, hey, I'm still in this field. I published X papers during that time. Or I'm still in this field. I'm still a postdoc. This is what I'm doing. This is my employment verification. Even though you don't need a job offer for this, sometimes they will say, show us that you're still in the line that you applied, for during the I-140 step. Okay. Now, again, I mentioned that if you had dependents, that this is the time to add them on your application. So I'm talking about a spouse, I'm talking about children under the age of 21, right? If you have dependents, this is time to show these relationships. You're going to put your marriage certificate, you're going to put the birth certificates of your children. Doesn't matter if your children are bearing different names than you. The birth certificates usually have the name of the mom and the dad on there, so that will prove that they're your children. Some of you have spanking new marriages, right? So your I-140 was approved and you went and found love, right? If that's the case, sometimes they may ask you to come in for an interview. So if you do receive a notice for interview, especially with those spanking new marriages, it's okay. Don't freak out or anything like that. You just want to make sure that someone is not taking advantage of you. Someone is not seeing that you've been approved and now wants to hop on and become a permanent resident holder just like you, right? And so it happened to me as well, right? When I applied for I-140, I got married after that. Like life happens. And at the time, everyone was getting called in for an interview. So I went, to the interview, went for the interview with my husband. And so the questions that they were asking him were like, oh, when did you guys meet? Who said I love you first? Where did you, all those kind of questions to kind of spook and see if it's a real relationship, right? So you want to make sure that you guys are getting your stories correctly, right? Because it's still possible that people who are really in love may forget some facts, right? But for the most part, you don't have to give exact same answers, but typically the answers will be identical in some way. We don't all talk the same way, but we all say the same information, right? So you want to make sure that you put evidence. So for us, we put evidence of our marriage certificates. We had, we've been dating since like college and things like that. So we had all that evidence, right? Okay, so we've added your dependents, and then we usually include just a cover letter. A cover letter is just saying, hey, I'm applying for I-485. These are all the things I'm sending to you, and then I'll sign, basically, right? So that everything is organized. There are some forms that you can also include in your adjustment of status application, such as the application for work authorization and the application for advanced parole or travel document, right? It used to be that these things were free if you wanted to include them in the application for adjusting status, but now they're not free anymore. USCIS wants individual payments for everybody who's applying for these things on your application. So you kind of have to plan ahead. If it's just you and your spouse and you want to apply for, say, employment authorization document, which is the EAD card, and you want both of you to be able to work, they can give you an EAD for each of you, but you each have to apply for those things. Download again the current I-765 form from the website, fill it out correctly, and include it in that application. But you're going to have to pay for that form, for every form, right? Also, once you apply for adjustment of status, you can't really travel outside the US without express permission, right? Or an approval. The reason is if you travel outside the US while they're adjusting your status, they'll say, you don't really need this green card, right? You've abandoned this whole thing. Why should we be working on this while you just left, right? So you want to make sure that if you plan to travel, and most times people don't even know if they're going to travel. Sometimes things come up and you have to leave, right? So we always encourage individuals who are applying for adjustment of status to also put in the application for advanced parole or travel document, right? Using the form I-131, right? Now, on that form, they're going to ask you, where do you plan to travel to? How many times do you plan to travel? Is this going to be like multiple entry or is it just a single entry, right? For us, we put multiple because we didn't really know. We're just projecting that maybe for Christmas, we want to go visit our family in Nigeria, or that, something may come up and they will ask you, where do you intend to travel? You can list all those places that you think you might want to go, either for work or for pleasure. And then, you can give them some projection onto where you're going, right? And again, you have to pay for this form as well. Okay, so a recap. What I have said is, for the next step when it comes to adjustment of status, there are 4 important forms for each individual on that application, right? There's the I-485, which is the main form for adjusting status. There's the I-693, which is the medical form. There are 2 optional forms. There is the I-765, which is for employment authorization, especially for those of you who are at the border of your legal stay in the US, or ability to work. Maybe you think you're going to run out of time. Usually USCIS will go anywhere from 8 months to up to 14 months to just finish out this adjustment of status, right? That's what they say, but for the most part, the individuals who we've worked with use usually around 6 to 7 months. But I have seen people who have waited a whole year. So if you think that your current work authorization, whatever you're working on right now, may expire during the time that you're adjusting status, go ahead and apply for another EAD card through the form I-765, right? They will give you at least 2 years on that new employment authorization document that allows you to work while they still go ahead and look at your case, right? Go through your case. Okay, so that's the 765. And then the final one is 131, for the advanced parole or travel document. Again, you don't want to leave the US if you don't have that approved, not applied, but approved, right? So when you turn that in, then you can rest easy that you've done everything that you can to adjust your status successfully. Okay. Now, if you have a minor on your application, let's say you have a child there, you might not want to apply for employment authorization for the child. And of course, a child cannot complete a form. So the parent will complete that form again, sign as the parent on the I-485. The cost for minors is a little different. You can go on the USCIS website and get all this information. Again, we're very good at giving you information, but we do expect that you go on those websites and also validate, verify, trust, but verify all the time what you need to do. Okay, so let's talk about the individuals who are outside the US, right? The Visa Bulletin also impacts those who are outside the US. The most important thing is that the National Visa Center, right, NVC, will send you a letter as soon as your priority date is current. They will. Now, if you haven't heard from them, you can reach out to them and inquire. But usually when it's time to adjust your status, they will send, or when it's time for the consular processing, they will send you a notification that it's time, right? When they do, it's time to move on with that. It's time for you to complete all the steps. So usually at this point, maybe you've created your once you've been approved, maybe you've created your profile on their website, you've uploaded the necessary documents, they have verified that you've uploaded everything that they need. You're still going to need the medical check if you're outside the US, right? They still care about those communicable diseases, they still care about those vaccination records, they still care about those mental health checks, they still care about the same things, right? Again, the civil surgeon, they will tell you where to go for that. If you're outside the US, for instance, in your country, they have approved centers where you can get that done. So you go and get it done, and then you'll be scheduled for an interview, right? You have to go to the consulate in your country and, get interviewed by a US consular officer, right? Usually, what are they asking at these interviews? Now, whether this interview is in the US or at the point we are adjusting status or outside during consular processing, the questions are similar. They're asking, okay, you got approved for I-140. Tell us, about this thing that you're going to do in the US, right? So it's important that you know what you apply for. I know it's been a year since you applied, but familiarize yourself with that petition. What did I say I was going to do in the US? What are the supporting documents that I put in as my application or with my application? And you want to take the originals of everything that you submitted. So let's say you submitted a copy of your master's degree, bachelor's degree, certifications, all these were copies, right? When you do go for that interview, I encourage you to take the originals because they may ask you for those things, right? Okay. And then, of course, if you have dependents, they too maybe ask questions at the interview, right? To make sure that these people are indeed related to you and that they're eligible to move to the US as well. Now, do they issue green cards outside the US? No. As soon as you get, as soon as they're approving this, they're stamping your passport, you have to travel to the US within that time frame that is, stipulated. It's usually like 6 months to a year, but pretty much I think 6 months. Travel to the US, and then in the US, you receive your green card, right? Green cards are issued in the US. So I feel like I've given you guys a lowdown of everything that you need for both adjusting status, as well as those who are going to go for the consular processing, the documents that you need. Vaccinations are important. Medical check is important. If you want to keep working and you're within the US, you can apply for another employment authorization document. You can apply for advanced parole if you need to travel. And how long are you going to wait? Again, we say that on average, we have seen people who have gotten it in 6 to 8 months. But if you go on their website, you might see 8 to 14 months because they don't want you bugging them every day about this, right? Okay. What are the questions that I think you guys may have? I'm going to open this up for questions so that we can actually, get real-time questions from individuals and we get to answer some of those things, all right? All right. Now, you guys, a lot of people come in our DMs and ask questions about this process. We will answer you guys in the DMs, but we will prioritize individuals who schedule appointments. So if you want us to really, hey, can you guys create a cover letter? Can you guys review stuff for me? Please schedule a consultation. What we're showing on the screen now is the October Visa Bulletin. And if you look, we're showing two chats right now. The first is for family sponsored or family based, and then the second is for employment based. If you look at the lower chat for the employment based, you first preference is current. When you see C, it means current. It means that if you apply for a green card today, we get approved today. Hey, we can give you that green card today, right? If you apply for a green card and you see the character C, it means C for current. It means that visas are readily available. And if you see the first preference, EB1, we always prioritize them. They always have visas available. The second preference, which falls under the EB2 NIW and even the EB2 on its own, you see that the priority date for most places is 1st of August 2023. And then for places like China, for India, China and India, they have given you specific dates as well, right? So the reason why we focus on this particular date for filing again is because USCIS has asked us to use this date, right? Specifically for the month of October, right? We know that their fiscal year begins in October. They have a lot of green cards again to, process and give out. And so they have said, use this date to know when the people that we're going to be really, really attending to in the month of October 2024. Again, you can go on the USCIS website, go on the Department of State website, ample information about how to interpret these charts. Really not what we're talking about here today, but we're just saying that if you have a priority date before the 1st of August 2023, that you're able to move forward adjustment of status. All right. People are asking questions here. You want me to read them from my phone or you want to post them? You want me to read from my phone? Okay. So I'm just going to wait till the questions pop up. Okay. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and then it will get posted on here so I can read and answer your questions as soon as possible. Okay, someone is saying, if I move, do I need to submit a separate change of address, or does me filling this next step with my new address is okay? Well, if you have moved, when you're filling out your I-485, there is a place for where you're going to put your address, right? USCIS really cares about change of address, especially okay, let me give you different scenarios, right? For individuals who are now permanent residents, if you move, USCIS wants to know in at least 10 days that you have moved. So you go in their website, do the whole change of address form and submit that. For someone like you who hasn't really submitted your adjustment of status yet, when you do fill out the form for adjustment of status, put your new address. Again, there will be a section that even says, give us your address in the last 5 years. So you're going to still put your old address, right? But for anything that has to do with mailing address, please use the address where you live right now. And then you can move forward with the adjustment of status. So what you have to do is fill out your I-485, use your current address. There'll be a section where you put the different addresses that you've lived in. Go ahead and update that. All right. Hope that answered your question. And congratulations, guys. Like all of you are asking questions. I'm so happy. These are people that have been approved. They're moving on to the next step. We're super excited. We've been working at this for years, right? And we have a ton of people who have their I-140s approved, who have just been waiting. And I'm really excited because we're going to start posting all these success stories about people who have finally gotten their green cards, who can finally move forward with the process. So the table, it affects consular processing. What I will say is that this specific month of October, USCIS, it looks like USCIS has prioritized individuals who are adjusting status, right? Because if you go on the Visa Bulletin, they say unless otherwise suggested by USCIS, and they'll give you a link. So, and the reason is because those who are already in the US, they're on visa types that are time-based, right? So it makes sense that they are prioritized, right? In my estimation, it makes sense that they are prioritized. However, the Visa Bulletin, yes, does affect consular processing individuals, but they will tell you when it's time for you to apply for consular processing. You will know. They'll give you that information. But for right now, it seems like this is affecting those who are adjusting status specifically, okay? If not, if USCIS doesn't say otherwise, then you use the final action date. But specifically for October 2024, for those who are adjusting status, they are told to use the final action, the filing date of filing. Okay. I think they have that. Any other questions? How many years does it take to complete the EB2NIW visa? How many years does it take to complete it? Okay, well, let me see if I can interpret this question. You're saying from when you apply to when you get the green card, right? So if all things are equal, right, let's say there's no wait time at the time that I applied, right? You turn in your application for I-140, it gets approved in 6 months. You turn in an application for 485, it gets approved in another 6 months. It might take a year, right? But right now, it's taking at least um 1.5 to 2 years to complete the process, right? It's taking at least 2 years. So it's not one of those visas that you, or those things that you apply for and you have plans of relocating the next day. No, it's a long-term plan. It's one of those things that I have this plan, I really want to relocate to the US. There's this pathway that suits me. I'll go ahead and turn it in while I continue with my life, right, in my home country, or while I continue to do other things in the country that I am in. Now, if you're qualified for EB1, which is the first preference for like innovators, for inventors, and things like that, you can apply, but on average, these are the times that we've seen. Okay. Is there provision? Hi, Endurance. Hi, Dr. Endurance. Is there provision to expedite EAD during the adjustment of status phase? There is provision to expedite EAD, of course, especially for essential workers. But there's no specific form for this. This is just you calling USCIS and telling them that based on XYZ, you would like for your EAD to be expedited, and you give a credible reason, compelling reason. Sometimes they'll say you should send it in, or sometimes based on the discretion of the USCIS officer you're talking to, they may just say, okay, we're going to go ahead and do that, right? But especially during the COVID period, a lot of essential workers, people who take care of children, people who take care of like you, doctors and things like that, they were making exceptions for you. So if historically the EAD has taken 3 months at least to receive it after you apply, right? And typically you get the EAD before the green card. It will come much earlier than the green card. If you apply for EAD and advanced parole, it may come as a combo card, or they may separate it. I think last I checked, they were separating the two. But if you want that to be expedited, of course, you can call them and just explain the situation to them. Tell them you're an essential worker, you work in a hospital, you do exceptional work, and hopefully, they give you that. They give you that. All right. How long does, we just talked about that. How long does I-765, which is the employment, which is the application for employment authorization, right? How long does it take? It usually, historically, takes 3 months. I haven't seen anyone who got less than 3 months. So it could be 3 to 5 months. Again, if you're an essential worker, please call them and see if they can expedite this for you, especially those who are about to fall out of status, right? Or who, hey, you're not going to have a job tomorrow because your EAD has expired. And then usually, I forgot to mention this. When you turn in an application with USCIS, you receive a receipt notice. On the specific receipt notice for the 765, sometimes it says that this serves as the actual extension until you receive the actual card, right? So I remember when I was working and I applied for an EAD card, I gave my employer that receipt notice as evidence that I've applied for this, and they said that this will suffice till I get the actual card, right? So that's something that you can do as well. I know that USCIS has talked about that extensively. So go ahead and look and see if you have, that the ability to use that as well. And then if you want to call them, of course, go ahead and call them. Guys, I call on the phone if I need clarification. I will call them. I will call them as many times as I need to call them. All right. If someone gets EB1 this month, can they marry sorry, I'm so sorry. Can they marry next month and apply for I-485 together with their spouse almost immediately? Life happens, right? You can marry tomorrow. You can marry at any point in time. Now, something that you have to keep in mind is that while your life is happening, USCIS may be skeptical about everything going on in your life, right? Because it does look like this girl has been approved, and then maybe someone wants to just hop on an application, So don't be surprised if they call you in for an interview. You just don't want to see this your husband. Let's ask him questions. Now, I'm going to give you an example, and this is a true life story, right? I'm not going to tell you any names, of course. I did talk to a few people. I talked to a couple. Well, one of them. And one of the questions that did them under actually was they separated them at the interview. And then they asked the guy, where were you on Monday? Right? The guy says he was at work. They asked the girl, where was your husband on Monday? And she said he was at home. Right? And because there were discrepancies in that answer, they delayed the process for the spouse. Right? So if you're just bear in mind that if your marriage is new, that they may ask you multiple questions. They may want to know, okay, do you guys really know each other? Is there evidence that you guys have known each other before this approval and things like that? It's totally normal because it's a job of the government to ensure that there's no immigration fraud, right? But again, congratulations on your marriage. It shouldn't be a problem. I'm sure you have all that evidence to show that you guys have been texting each other forever, doing all these vacations together, and maybe your families have met, taking pictures with everybody. It's time to print those pictures just in case they need them at the interview. Now, even if they don't need them, if I were you, I would include them as well, right? And I would just like make a collage and say, put everything on a single paper, single PDF, and put some captions under it and say, this is the one we were at blah, 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 put the date. And if there are like messages between the two of you that shows some timestamp, like WhatsApp and things like that, you could also show things like that to prevent being called for an interview. You want to prevent all those scenarios, all those things, okay? Okay, well, congratulations, this is awesome. If you're outside and you have a US citizen as a son, does he need to go for the medicals? If you are outside and you have a US citizen as a son, I'm saying, okay, I guess what you're asking is, if I want to file for my parents, green card application for my parents, do they still need to do the medicals? Every single person is going to do who's going to come to the US needs to do the medicals, right? So my parents have gotten their green cards as well. And I remember that they did medicals as well, right? Communicable diseases are not selective for older people, younger people, anybody can get anything. So just want to make sure that they don't have those public health concerns. But the process is a lot faster. So if you're applying for your parents, a US citizen can apply for their spouse, their children, their parents, and it's a lot faster. All these things we're talking about don't even concern you. These timelines, they will prioritize you. Can I apply for EB2 while getting my master's? It's a great question. Apply for EB2 when you're qualified, right? It doesn't matter if you're doing your PhD, your master's, apply when you're qualified. Personally, for us, because it's an investment to make this application, we like people to have at least a master's. That's not the requirement of the government. The government says bachelor's degree and above, at least 5 years of work experience in that your field, right, that you're working in, that you got your degree in, especially if you're applying through advanced degree, right? So for EB2 and NIW, let me explain again. For EB2 and NIW, there are 2 ways you can apply. You can either apply on the basis of exceptional ability, or you're applying on the basis of advanced degree. The government is saying, if you're going to apply by advanced degree, at least have a bachelor's and 5 years of work experience in that field, right? If you're applying on the basis of being exceptional, here are a list of 10 things that you can at least give us 3 out of 10 to show us that you're exceptional. So there are certain people that are exceptional that don't need degrees, like athletes, right? You can play pro football and not have a degree for that, right? But you have other things like awards and things to show that you're exceptional in your own field. Now, because there's a lot of competition, because there are a lot of people competing for the same thing, I always encourage people to put their best foot forward. So you have to ask yourself the question, will my master's degree make me more competitive for this, right? Because I've seen someone that had 15 years of work experience, oil and gas sector. He applied, and because he had only a bachelor's at that time, it seemed to not work in his favor, right? Because they even asked for RFE on that advanced degree as well. So I would suggest that you plan ahead and maybe apply when your application is stronger. If you need help looking at the entirety of your profile, you can schedule a consultation. We can get on there, talk to you about these things, review your profile, especially brainstorm about proposed endeavor, because some people are very qualified, but they propose something that the US just doesn't see the national importance of that stuff. So very important that you do a consultation if you can afford it, and let's move forward. Do you file adjustment styles for people just to avoid mistakes? No, I don't file anything for anyone. So our services are purely editorial, right? We help you put together the application. Of course, we can help you prepare the application for submission, but we don't submit for you, right? So if you want us to help you with that process, we can, to make sure that everything looks right. But for all the clients that we work with, they are the ones who turn in the applications. But we can review everything with you. We have people that are legal on board, but because our company is mainly on the editorial side, we don't do things like submit for individuals or even make payments for them, when it comes to the government forms and things like that. We stay on the side of the editorial stuff where we're putting everything together for you. Finally, you use your God-given hands to submit it, right? Okay. For someone whose priority date is current since 2 years ago, but yet to be scheduled interview from Nigeria consulate. What's your advice? Though NBC keeps sending emails every 60 days to wait, you have to wait, right? Again, everything is dependent on NBC. If they're saying wait, then you have to wait, right? Again, if they're the ones, just make sure these are not automated emails. So I would advise you to even reach out to them yourself, call them and say, hey, I've been approved. My priority date is current. I would like to know when I'm going to move forward with my interview. Some of these places, it also depends on the wait time. Sometimes it's the interview wait time. They don't have enough slots for individuals, but I would say 2 years is a long time. I would reach out to them myself if I were you. Reach out to them. Don't wait for those emails. Reach out to them and just, talk to someone. When I applied for my EB2 NIW, of course, there were times when we were told that we were within the waiting window. But every time we reached out, I would notice that something would shift, right? It's almost like people are sending me, calling me. The person who calls me last, they are top of my mind, basically. So I would say, don't wait for them to send you emails. If you feel like it's taking too long, reach out to them as well and ask questions, right? Okay. There's something that we do here in the US. Sometimes we can go through our congressman if we feel like it's taking too long. We go through our representatives and they will directly reach out to USCIS and, hey, our application is taking forever. We applied so time. This is our receipt notice. What can be done, right? So you reach out to the number available and see if you can talk to a live agent about this. At least let them give you that reassurance that they've not forgotten about you. Okay. All right. If priority date is current, but while in the process of preparing my application, the date was retrogressed, can I still submit I-485? No. You're going to use the priority date of the month that you're turning it in, right? If that thing retrogressed, then no. It has to be the priority date of the month that you're turning it in. I've had clients who just want to try. I just want to try. For example, they're saying people who got approved, or people whose priority dates are before the 1st of August, 2023, I've had people that say my priority date is 15th of August. I just want to try to see if they'll accept it, right? I had this client that sent it to one location. They sent it back to her. She sent it to a different place and they accepted it, right? But hey, you can try, but if they don't accept it, of course, they'll send everything back to you, okay? Usually they go by that priority date. They're very keen on that. And there are individuals who are within their priority dates who have applied and had the whole thing sent back to them. Again, they just sent it right back and it got accepted. Which date table is applicable for consular processing? So it is the filing date usually, right? Well, the 2 dates are important. Let me explain the difference between the 2 dates. There's the final action date, which is the date that USCIS can give you a decision on your green card. And then there is the filing date, which is the date that you can physically send them an application for your green card processing. Most times they will not give you a decision if that final action, if your priority date is not still within that final action date. So both dates are important, but the final action date is the date that they can actually give you a decision on that green card application, right? While the filing date is the date that you can send in your application. You may send it, they try to do it so people can be proactive about sending their applications. But most of the time they won't give you a decision until the final action date. Your priority date is within or before the final action date. So both dates are important. Usually it's the final action date that they look at, but specifically for this month, for adjustment of status, they've asked us to look at the filing date. Okay. All right. Any more questions before I head out? It's been an hour. I hope you guys have really gotten something from this. If you do need our help with anything, when it comes to preparing your application, when it comes to the cover letters needed for this, so, putting things together, we can help with the process. You can reach out to us as well. Okay. For entrepreneurs, is it ideal to apply for EB1 or what is the best way? Okay, that's a great question. I've had entrepreneurs who have applied for EB2 NIW. I've had those who have done EB1A. Both have been successful. The difference was how much of a successful entrepreneur are you? The entrepreneurs who applied under EB1A were mostly inventors, people who had invented something new, and that thing had made a positive change in their field, right? I'll give you an example. During COVID, one of our clients, he created a hand washing machine. that they use in hospitals, right? The one that is gamified, where you're washing your hand, it's probably singing a song, and then you know that after this happy birthday, da da da, then you've reached the amount of time needed to successfully wash your hands, right? So it's a gamified, um, you created these gamified stations for hand washing. And hand washing on its own prevents a ton of communicable diseases, right? And so having done that at the peak of COVID, and his stuff was used like in so many hospitals, so many old people's homes, different places. He had gotten awards from top individuals. You know what I mean? Like, it just depends. EB1 is reserved for individuals who have successfully moved the needle, right? Basically. um it just depends on what you've done and what your entrepreneurship is on, right? We've had people who are employers of labor. Now, if you're mostly an employer of labor, I would say EB2 and NIW will be good for you. If you're trying to say that I'm going to employ US citizens, or I'm going to start this thing that's really going to help solve a transportation problem, or so it just depends. I would say the best way to know, of course, is schedule a consultation. Let's take a look at everything that you have. Let's see how successful you are in that field, what we can propose in line with what you have, and then we'll see how to move forward. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, if you click on the link in our bio, of course, you're going to see the link for consultations. If you go to our website, www.myeb2niw.com, you'll see all the templates, all the resources, editorial digital products that we have, right? And we're able to give you those templates if you want to do them yourself. You're able to purchase them on our website. Our name is quite deceptive because we started out with EB2NIW on its own. So we weren't doing EB1, but over time we have included EB1. We have success stories on EB1 as well. And we also help with O1 petitions as well. Okay, so O1 is really great for individuals who are running out of time. In fact, if you're qualified for EB2NIW, most likely you're qualified for O1. The difference between the O1 visa is that it's a visa, right? You get 3 years of work visa to come to the US and do work in your field. It's really good for those who are priority date is not yet current. You're thinking about the next non-immigrant status to kind of tide you over to when your priority dates will be current. I think the O1 will really help with that. You can expedite that. You can get that, really quickly. It's awesome, I think. But the thing is, you must have a job for the O1 visa. You must have a job for the O1 visa. And it has to be, something that you can get an employment contract to show that you have that job. You can get a letter of recommendation from someone who is top in that field to say that, it's an impactful field, or what you're planning to do is impactful in the US, or what you're already doing is impactful. And yeah, that's the way it is. Okay. Okay, this person is asking about B1, B2 expired May 2024 while in the US, and I have an approved EB2 NIW. Can I say apply for adjustment of status? They might issue an RFE for this, especially if you're out of status right now. So if your B1, B2 expired, are you on any other non-immigrant visa type, right? Because you have to be on a legal non-immigrant visa to adjust to the green card, right? But if you've fallen out of status, they may issue that RFE to say, hey, show us evidence that you're in status at this time, right? So if there are individuals who have come to the US on B1, B2, they know they want to stay in the US, I would say explore other non-immigrant visa types before the expiration, so you don't find yourself in a situation where you can't adjust status. Because sometimes they'll say you can't adjust, maybe you can do consular processing, and then you have to leave the US to finish the process, right? So just make sure that you're able to answer that question. How do we make payments for everyone on the application? Okay, I guess a general question. How do you make payments? There is a form. If you're going to use credit card, you can use credit cards, you can use cashier's checks, you can use money order to make these kind of payments. Other people can make the payments on your behalf. They just have to make a note of who they're paying for, of course. Every form has to have its own payment. They don't bunch payments up for this type of thing. They don't mix payments up as well. So you cannot be using credit cards for some, money order for some. No, you have to use one form of payment, and every individual form will have its own payment. So let's say you are paying for I-485, you're paying for, so I-693, it doesn't really have a fee attached to this. What is attached to the I-693, which is the medical check, will be what you pay your civil surgeon or the medical organization where you did the test, right? So you have the I-485, if you're going to apply for 765, you have 765 and you have 131. If if you're paying for these 3 forms and you want to pay by credit card, for example, you will download the credit card authorization form, right? Just a one-page thing. It's called G1450. Now you download it 3 times because you have 3 payments to make, right? Authorize it for the individual amounts so that if it's 715 for, or if it's 1,000 for this one, if it's 2,000 for this one, authorize the different amounts and then you can send it in. So if you have dependents, again, they will have to do the same thing where you authorize the payments for each of the things that they're sending in. So that's how you pay. But you can pay with credit card, you can pay with money order, you can pay with cashier's check. Does payment of premium processing at the time of petition speed up the green card obtaining process? It does not. It does not. Premium processing only speeds up the I-140 step, right? And again, premium processing does not even speed up, give you a better priority date, right? Premium processing will only say, hey, you've been approved for I-140 earlier, right? You have that knowledge earlier, but that's it. So let me give you a scenario. 2 people applying for I-140. One uses premium processing, one doesn't. Both send in the application on the same day. They both have the same priority date. The person who has more money for premium processing doesn't get an earlier date. So in that way, it's actually kind of fair. But the benefit is that the person who applied for premium processing hears in like 20 days that they've been approved, right? And let's say they hear that, oh, it's time to adjust your status. Well, they have one leg over someone who maybe didn't do the premium processing because that person doesn't even know if they've been approved yet. If it's EB2 NIW right now, I would say it doesn't really make any difference, except you just have the money and you really just want to know right away, have I been approved or not, right? If that's the case, you want peace of mind, you can afford it, of course, do premium processing, but it's not going to expedite the adjustment of status phase, if you get what I mean. Okay. All right. Okay. I believe that is all that I can take right now. We've been here for an hour. I hope this has been really helpful to you guys. I hope we've answered most of your questions. If we haven't, and you guys are ready to turn in your application, you can reach out to us. We can schedule a consultation. We can help you go through everything. Make sure you're sending in the right information, the right documents. You send it to the right address and things like that. If you're at the point where you're just trying to apply for the I-140, I'll say do it. Give yourself all the chances that you deserve, especially when you have worked hard for it. This is something that you've earned and you're qualified for. Definitely give yourself that opportunity to get your green card that way. Okay, it's merit-based and it's an avenue that, of course, you can take advantage of. Again, my name is Dr. Ozi. My training is in science. I'm actually a scientist. My training is in microbiology. I wrote grants for many, many, many years and got funded. And then I realized I really like writing, so why not create this editorial service company where we help individuals put together their petitions for EB1A, EB2 NIW. We have really exceptional people on our team that can help you do that as well. Okay. We are able to do that. We've helped a lot of individuals, hundreds of individuals through our products, the ebooks, through the templates, and of course, for those who we've actually have written their petitions as well. We don't manufacture petitions, guys. We work with you. Most of the people who we work with on their petitions are individuals who are busy professionals and who don't have the time to sit down and write 30 to 40 pages of petition, right? And so we're able to do that because that's what we do all day, all night, right? So we're able to write those petitions, help you put it together, tell your story in a compelling way, and give you an increased chance of approval, well, with your petitions. That's what we do. So if you're looking to get those kind of services, you can reach out to us. You can schedule a consultation, go on our website, www.myeb2niw.com, of course, and we'll be able to help you out in the ways that we can. Okay. So until I come your way again for the next Instagram Live, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let's see if I can say bye to specific people. Bye, Bumblebee, Bumble 15, and good luck with the page as well. I see what you guys are doing. I'm really proud of you. I love it when immigrants are doing amazing things, especially when they're giving back and to the community and just either with information and things like that. I see what you're doing. Keep up the good work. Hi, Opilo Luxury. Nice to be here. Thank you so much. All right. Okay, let me answer one more question. Okay. If filing I-485 with a spouse, do you put the two petitions in one package or do you send them to USCIS separately? We put them in one package. So here's what we do, right? If I write my own cover letter, I sign it, I put all the forms that I'm going to fill out behind my cover letter. So for myself, I'm the principal petitioner, I want to apply for 485. I put my sealed I-693. I put my application for 765. I put my 131 for advanced parole. I could even use a rubber band to just band up my own application. I'll do the same with my husband's application, but I'll mail everything in the same package to USCIS, right? I'll include the payments for everything separately. I will what's the word for it? I will bind them separately or I will tie them separately, right? You know what I mean? Is I'm holding them, I'm organizing them separately, but I'm putting the separate payments. I can send everything in one mailing package to USCIS. That's accepted. All right. Okay. Thank you so much for joining and have an amazing day. Bye.